college football news, bell notification, subscribe to the channel, like it, and comment down below to get this news and information out to the college football public in the world. As we broke earlier this morning, an exclusive as one of the only people, if not the only people, to report that I had my insiders out there sniffing out the details because the devil's in the details that Michigan State and Mel Tucker are in kind of a sticky, nasty, shameful, disgusting, and embarrassing situation for that man there, that former head coach. And that's right, we're using a college football news, the former head coach, because he's been suspended without pay for his allegations that he was, quote unquote, yanking it, uh, as Tommy Boy would say, on the phone with, as he calls, consensual phone sex with a former victim of sexual assault by three Oregon players and a high school player in the late 90s out at Oregon University. And Mel Tucker has been suspended without pay. Mark D'Antonio will be coming on in an interim role and an interim basis to help out wherever he can. And at 517, Michigan State allowed 3 questions to holler. 2 were regarding the decision not to suspend Tucker in July when they were first made aware of it. Uh, he didn't directly answer the question, as they never do, saying that the investigation has been ongoing and the interim measures were constantly being evaluated. Ask what changed today to prompt a suspension. Obviously, we all know that report was made public to people like me and the college football world and the general public, so they could no longer hide from it. They could no longer pretend it wasn't going on, and they could no longer cover it up in their own mischievous and shameful way. Holler said that MSU is always evaluating the interim measures that are in place, blah, 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 blah. But they will not, as we reported first this morning, Michigan State will not fire Mark D'Antonio officially, even though unofficially he has been fired and been relieved of his duties. And like we told you this morning, at College Football News, Mel Tucker has coached his last game at Michigan State, and we think Mel Tucker has coached his last game as a head coach at any kind of Power 5 or major university. And Mel Tucker is going to have to walk away and be fired in shame, disgrace, despair, and embarrassment for having phone sex with a victim of sexual assault that was supposedly brought around the program to educate his players and himself, which obviously Tucker wasn't paying attention, how to handle themselves and behave appropriately around young ladies and women, right? Tucker signed a 10-year, $95 million contract, guaranteed contract extension in November of 2021. But there is a clause in the deal that will allow the university to get off the hook for the remaining money if he engages in any conduct which constitutes moral nonsense or which in the university responsible judgment would tend to bring public disrespect, contempt, shame, ridicule, and the rest of it, which this meets Chuck Mel Tucker on how to lose $95 million or about $80 million or $70 million left on that contract without getting any of it. He just wrote the book on it. And Tucker, but Michigan State will do their due diligence, will give them due process so they don't get into a tangled legal mess like Northwestern is after they fired their head coach for nasty shit that was going on in the Northwestern locker room, if it was all true, which it seemed to be, but they didn't give him his due process, so he's fighting in court to try to get his contract. Michigan State will not make that mistake because they wanted to get out of this contract, and this is a perfect out for them. So he'll be fired like we reported first uh, on August or October 5th and 6th, one of those 2 dates after they conclude their investigation, right? So Mel Tucker, this is not a good look. You've coached your last game at Michigan State University in the Fighting Spartans, and you've coached your last game at any kind of major college program. As for one, you've never won at a major college program. Michigan State gave you the job after going 2-3 at with the Jacksonville Jaguars, probably on an interim basis. 1 year in Colorado, you went 5-7 and 3-6 and showed no promise. The team looked horrible, and then Michigan State hired you in desperation because they interviewed you. They didn't offer you the job. They wanted Fickle. Fickle said, "Go fuck yourself, Michigan State," and then they came running back to old Mel Tucker because they didn't have anybody else on their short lease, and they paid the big farm for you. And what'd you do? You looked horrible your first year, 2-5. Yes, COVID. but still team looked horrible. Beat Michigan, but team looked horrible. Had a miraculous 11-2 season, which will end up being Mel Tucker's best head coaching season in his career at any kind of major institution or Power Five conference. And then 5-7 and 2-0 on his way to a probably 7-4, 7-5, 8-4 at best this year, with losses to Penn State, Michigan State, Ohio State, and Washington, guaranteed losses. But he's been fired in disgrace. He hasn't been winning. There's no reason for them to want to keep him. The boosters have wanted him out for 2 years. They never really even liked the hire. College football news. Peace and love.